Hey everybody, Coop here. This is going to be my review for Lords of the Fallen. This one has been a long time coming. Been really letting this kind of cook in my brain, and I've scrapped 2 different scripts on this now, so enjoy. Here you go. I'll be dividing this up into 2 sections. I'm going to talk about the PvE and the PvP elements separately, because I do think they really need to be talked about very separately and very distinctly. And I'm just really not going to pull my punches for this game. I'm going to give you my honest thoughts and what I feel like is a really good and well-rounded review. I'm going to try and balance both my optimism and my frustration and skepticism in this review to hopefully find something that's usable to you. Lords of the Fallen is legitimately a fun PvE game. I've seen a lot of people online trashing it when it comes to its PvE, and it's something there are a couple, I would say, small things that are out of balance, out of whack, if you will, and I think if those things were fixed, I think the game would be really great right away. Like, I think it's a totally competent Souls-like experience without and especially once they fix the performance issues. I can't lie, my experience on PC was hugely colored by the fact that I had performance issues when I was fighting the Crow boss. I won't say more just in case you're still spoiler free. I think I had 6 or 7 crashes across multiple different playthroughs, and this is while they're continuing to update and refine the game as well. And the funny thing is, despite all of that stuff, I still had a really good core PvE experience. I think Lords of the Fallen does a really good job of harkening back to sort of Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2 era, where the runbacks to bosses were a lot more where the challenge of the game was. You had to take that slow down, methodical approach. You couldn't just run to a boss door the way you can in Elden Ring. And Elden Ring has adapted its design style to fit that, where it got rid of a lot of the runbacks. You know, like just in a catacomb in Elden Ring, for example, you clear the catacomb and then you come back and the bonfire is essentially right across from the boss door right at the end. So there's like no run back basically ever anymore. And it was nice to see a return to form. I do think that keeping your levels and your basic enemies feeling dangerous is like a really good Dark Souls style design. And I think it's something that I hope to see Elden Ring and Souls games kind of go back to at least a little bit more, maybe a nice more balanced point. Because of that, I do think that Lords of the Fallen does get pretty frustrating. It does feel a little bit grindy, and I would say one of the worst parts of the game for me personally is these gargoyle style enemies that spawn literally endlessly when you're in Umbral. I understand that they're there to fulfill this kind of purpose of being like Umbral bad, but I think the bigger enemies do a much better job of selling how scary and intimidating Umbral is supposed to be, how you don't want to hang out there. The gargoyles just literally feel like fodder, and they really make the game feel chunky and kind of overly encumbered. A lot of players complained about enemy density is something that people said a lot. I did not find enemy density to be overly dense, except for when you were in Umbral and these gargoyles would spawn like all over you. It was really the amount of them that spawned was really ridiculous in my opinion. Aside from those things, I actually really enjoyed it. I love how spare all of the checkpoints are. I love the vestige seed mechanic where you plant your own checkpoints. I think that's a really creative checkpoint. I really liked the Umbral puzzle mechanics of like solving areas and stuff like that. The biggest weakness of this game, I would say, as a PvE game is enemy variety. It's unfortunate that basically all of the late game areas, like bosses that were interesting and unique and creative, I think one of the good examples of this is the Infernal Enchantress, just become mundane enemies. And another one as well is the Houndmaster, or I'm not sure what the name of that boss is, the archer lady who has dogs. She was a pretty iconic fight. I actually really enjoyed that fight, as annoying as it was. But then she just gets reused 1,000 times, and I don't associate anything iconic with her anymore. I just think it's super unfortunate for them to just reuse so many enemies. I would have loved to see a lot more new enemies in the late half of the game. That would have done a lot of work for me. The story, I think, is super interesting. I really like the multiple different endings. They each feel very distinct, very unique, very rewarding. The Umbral ending in particular is really interesting. Really like that one. I think there's just a lot to like in terms of a offline PvE experience for Lords of the Fallen. I think with some, maybe another month or so of like refining the performance of the game, the studio probably could have had a real smash hit of a PvE game on their hands. And again, I still really like it. I think if the game was released as a PvE only single player experience, I think I'd be happy to rate this game as a 7 out of 10. That's, for those who don't know, that's a very good rating for me. 7 is like a completely competent game that's worth your money. 8 is like something that's doing something super exceptional. A 9 is like a masterpiece, like what most people give 10s, I give a 9. And then a 10 is a 9 that like changed game design forever. But unfortunately, Lords of the Fallen, a lot of its, at least maybe just the circles that I run in, both the PvP and the co-op elements were big parts that were advertised to people. They were advertised to the community. They were put out in a lot of the, the messaging, the materials. A lot of people I knew were really excited about the seamless co-op that was going to be offered in the game. Now it's time for us to talk about the PvP and online stuff. I just want to preface this by saying I still very much support this game as a PvE game. If you haven't caught on yet, the online stuff is very bad, like really bad. Unplayable is a word that several other people have said. I think that it's just so sad. Honestly, that's just how I feel about it. I don't even want to like be negative about it or shit on it. I'm just sad because there's so much in the base of Lords of the Fallen that is so exciting. When you get a good connection, when your opponent isn't using any of the broken, bugged out stuff, it's actually really fun. Like, I think the opportunities for so much build expression, like there are so many builds that are living in the back of my head that I know I'm never going to make because I would want to build them to express them in PvP. So for those of you who don't know, because I do need to say this for those who don't know, Lords of the Fallen has the base Unreal Engine 5 way of handling netcode, which basically means the host has a perfect representation of the game state, and anyone who's connecting to them, whether it's co-op or PvP, sends information back and forth to the host. So the way that most peer-to-peer connections, that's what that's called, work is they both kind of meet in the middle, or they both send information, and then there's some interpretation that happens. There's an algorithm that interprets packets to make a much more smooth gameplay experience. Because there's only like a certain amount of things that can happen, so the latency makes interpretations. Well, the way that Lords of the Fallen handles netcode, the host has a perfect representation of the game, and everyone else has a extremely latent representation of the game. So if you get hit on the host screen, so if the host hits you, but you are already rolling, you will get rubber banded back into the attack. And that's true of everything. So the host has a perfect PvP experience. The co-opper and the PvPer, however, have completely fundamentally broken online PvP experiences. I mean, most of you guys here are PvP folks. You know what it's like to have broken or frustrating PvP connections. It is what it is at this point. But what really astounds me is that this was not looked at in terms of how it's going to affect the co-op gameplay. They put so much effort into these co-op and PvP systems. Like, you can see that they put effort, and I just have to look at it and ask, how was this missed? How was it missed that this is how latency is being handled in this game? It just doesn't make any sense. I've interacted with people who work at this company. I've talked to them. They are competent. I don't understand where this came from or where the oversight happened on this. And if there were voices within the company that were voicing this that weren't listened to, I don't know. What I know for certain is that when G9 was brought on 2 months ago, he confirmed this in my chat. And if G's watching this and I'm wrong, you can correct me. But he said that the PvP systems, when he came in 2 months ago, he was like, hey, the way your game handles net latency is insane. Like, it needs to change. You got to change it before you launch. And essentially they said no. I'm sure there was more dialogue that happened there, but the function is that they said no. This part really is just more me expressing the frustration. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around why do game developers why do they not think of these things right from the get-go? Is it just a matter of scope? Is it a matter of of perspective? Like, you're so focused on making that really good, Souls experience. You're focused on the levels and the weapons and that, all these, are you trapped in the weeds and you can't pull back and see things like, oh man, my netcode, I need to make sure I have netcode. Is that what's happening? Maybe. And like, to be honest, like this really started me in this whole spiral of like, I was like, maybe that's why so many of these companies keep doing this, is that they're just so focused as developers on these like offline, sort of RPG elements, that by the time they pull back and say, oh, okay, let's make sure PvP and co-op work, they look at the pieces they've assembled and think, oh, well, it's way too late for me to like write something new on this, because then I'm going to have to redo all of this other stuff. I just feel super disappointed. To summarize, in case in my ramblings this has gone over your head or something, it sucks. It sucks, and I don't think it'll ever be good. Unless the company decides to fundamentally change how the game handles netcode, which I really don't believe they will. If they did, that would be a miracle, and I would be back on the game, and I would change my review score. Everything would change for me. But it's just, do not buy it as a PvP game. Do not buy it as a co-op game. It is a solo PvE game experience, and you're going to like it, and you're going to have fun. So for these reasons, I'm trying not to connect this to my emotions as much as possible. For those reasons, I'm going to be giving this a 6 out of 10. I just can't in good conscience give this the same rating as Lies of P, when Lies of P was a essentially bugless launch on multi-platform. I know not having online helps with that, but the bugged launch, the really sloggy parts of the PvE part of the game, and just the PvP and co-op essentially not working. Oh, and I even forgot to mention the balance issues. The funny thing is, I didn't even bring those up because I know that they're going to get fixed. But like, yeah, right now there's like 1 million spells in this game that are literally unscaled. So like Pieta's summons, that holy laser spell, the triple shot crossbow with explosive bolts. There's a whole bunch of these different options that literally just kill you in one shot. And so yeah, those are frustrating, but I think those will get fixed in pretty short order. So they don't really super factor in for me. Probably once there's some PvP balancing back to the game, I'll probably go back and play a little bit more PvP. Might suffer the connections a little bit more. See if there's some fun still to be had there. But yeah, it's a 6 out of 10. That's probably the best score that I could offer it in its current state. I think that the best version of this game is probably still a 7 out of 10 in my opinion. I think if this game had really good PvP and co-op, I think this game is an easy 9, to be honest. I think there's so much in this game that is held back due to those online systems. I was really looking forward to doing, playthroughs of the game, co-op playthroughs, proper co-op playthroughs with friends. I was really looking forward to doing PvP, fight clubs. There were so many creative and exciting things that I really wanted to figure out and express in this game that I just have no motivation for at all. And frankly, I've just been in a completely frustrated state for the past month, because I've just been I all these ideas, these creative things that were building in my head are just gone now. I want to put this in here because this is genuinely how I feel. I still want to give a big shout out to Hexworks and CI Games. Making games like this is not easy, and the people there do deserve your support, and I want to see companies like this receiving the support of the community. But I also can't deny and can't pretend that we expect better when it comes to the PvP, the online, the co-op. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to be real. We wanted more, man. It's so disappointing. I'm so sad. I really wanted to see someone make FromSoft sweat. I wanted to see someone make, probably the biggest developer now. FromSoft has really established themselves as a titan in 2022 with Elden Ring. And I wanted to see someone make them sweat. I wanted to see someone turn up the heat and push FromSoft to be delivering real AAA online experiences. And I wanted other people to compete in that space and create this robust thing where I think what a lot of Elden Ring content creators are looking for are these other places to kind of bounce back from. It would be nice to be able to play this game's PvP and then play Elden Ring's PvP and bounce back and forth as inspiration grabs me. And it's funny because in a way I feel more grateful for the way that Elden Ring PvP works now more than ever. And in another sense, I do feel a genuine sense of loss that this thing that I was hoping for, this thing that I wanted to see is gone. That competition, and what I mean by that is the competition. The game's not dead and gone. But like competing and pushing FromSoft and showing them that the multiplayer matters, that's not happening with Lords of the Fallen. Okay, well, I hope that wasn't overly negative, and I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Thanks so much for checking me out. Please consider dropping a like on the video, hitting subscribe on the channel. Genuinely appreciate your support. And yeah, look forward to some more videos over the next couple weeks. See ya.
Hello, Tarnished. Consider clicking that like button and absolutely annihilating that subscribe button because the coop is based. Ranny out.